Imam, the screen is all yours. Please go ahead.
Oh, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everyone. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. First of all, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having made it possible for us to meet and to share among each other the importance of understanding certain aspects of Islam. And we're very grateful to the host and this community here in Florida for having hosted such a wonderful gathering every Wednesday night. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده. Inshallah, tonight I'll make a brief presentation on the Muslim response to domestic violence. Now, since the COVID-19 pandemic in this area, we have witnessed an increase of domestic violence victims and mental stress issues leading to depression, suicide, loneliness, and isolation. Domestic violence has resulted in numerous deaths by guns, choking, strangling, and beating. Since the start of this year, I have advised and counseled almost 70 Muslim couples. This definitely does not send a good trend in the Muslim community. And we must, as husbands and fathers and brothers and sisters, be concerned about this. In 1994, when I first became involved with the issue of domestic violence and talked with other imams about it, a common response was, I do not have domestic violence in my Jamaat. Some 27 years later, I still get the same response. I would like to offer some personal observations on this, partly invisibility of abuse and why it is difficult for imams to participate in domestic violence seminars and training. All religions strive to promote peace and harmony in our world, in our communities and in our homes. Despite its prevalence, violence at home has often been a well-hidden problem in our faith communities. Statistically, we know that in every worship service, there are victims and abusers, and in every religious school's class, there are young people who are the unseen victims of a war that is going on at home. The National Survey of Domestic Violence in the United States Muslim community will find that approximately 25% of Muslims live daily with the misery of physical domestic violence. Subsequent surveys by others indicate that if you count all the various forms of violence, the percentage goes up to almost 50%. Islam, as a faith, clearly supports justice, human rights, peaceful family members, and full development, consideration, and good manners, upheld by each person in the family. Unfortunately, too many families live in frightful, demeaning, and humiliating atmospheres created by overbearing, ignorant, and sometimes violent people in their lives. This behavior is the opposite of what Islam as a faith teaches. Yet many people inside and outside the Muslim community mistakenly think that unjust and criminal behavior within the Muslim family is the accepted norm. For too long, the Muslim community has done very little to admit or address this issue, and victims end up reaching out to others to solve their desperate conditions. Yet those who stay silent and those who try to help both need better information. Now, what is the definition of domestic violence? Domestic violence is a pattern of assaultive and coercive behaviors, including physical, sexual, and psychological attacks, as well as economic coercion that adults or adolescents use against their intimate partners. It must be noted that religious teachings can serve as either a roadblock or a resource in addressing domestic violence. There's absolutely nothing in Christian, Muslim, or Jewish teachings that can rightly be used to justify domestic violence or physical assault. As a religious community, our mandate is to minimize or eliminate the roadblocks facing abused members of our community and to maximize our resources that exist within our tradition. Now, what does Islam say as regards domestic violence? Since there are some in the Muslim community that believe that it is halal to hit their wives around because the woman is the property of the man, and on Islamic idea in the first place, I thought it would be good to send out this important reminder. I know many people would like to see this issue not talked about, as it is airing our dirty laundry in public, but it must be dealt with as Allah commands us to stand up for justice, even if it is against our own selves. We in the Muslim community should not tolerate our sisters being abused in any way, and should actively take measure to ensure that this abuse ceases. Now, if you know of someone who is being abused, it is haram for you to remain silent, and you will be held accountable before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you do not speak out, I personally hold in contempt any man who beats his wife and then comes to the mosque with all his outward signs of piety and the false assumption he is practicing the sunnah. This man is more nothing but a two-bit hypocrite. As the old saying goes, why does he not pick on someone his own size? Cowardly really do that. I'm reminded of a sister who was recently being abused by her Muslim husband. She went to the Imam looking for a divorce. What was the Imam's response to her? He said, "What have you done to your husband to drive him to do this to you?" Definitely, this should not be the response. We are always screaming the rights of women in Islam, which I'm convinced that most Muslims only pay lip service to, and are only complaining when we, our community, are stereotyped and misunderstood by Western society. But if we are committing actions like this, then what can we expect? If Muslim women the world over knew their rights in Islam and how they are being systematically abused and ripped off, there would be a massive revolution against men to assert their rights. In the years I have been Muslim, I have personally heard enough horror stories to make me think negatively about such brothers. One of the Muslim brothers often been apologizing for this abusive behavior, and we need to take action to rectify this sad situation. Now, let's all look at some practical solutions and give advice to this situation. First of all, a married couple should always encourage each other to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and act according to the Quran and the Sunnah. Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, related that the Prophet on whom the peace said, "May Allah have mercy on the man who rises at night to pray and wakes up his wife and then pray 2 rakats together. Allah will write them among the people who remember Allah much." A husband and a wife are from different families and may also be from different cultures. They must accept their differences with patience and kindness. If there is something which they dislike, they should hide their feelings and avoid offending each other. The best way to act is to treat your partner as you would like them to treat you. A couple should begin their marriage by making the intention to protect each other's right according to the Sharia, to make their family an asset to the Muslim community, and to bring up their children as good Muslims. This modern society, with its powerful media, uncensored entertainment, and uncontrolled immorality, holds many dangers for children. It is very important to maintain Islamic standards at home and provide a Muslim environment and a good example to our children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our wives and our children and guide us to the straight path. Now, based on many years counseling couples, although many Muslims may right now be in failing marriages and on a fast track to divorce and its terrible consequences, there are many ways to pull their marriage back on the right track if the husband and wife are sincere in their desire to reconcile. The following principles can be used by Muslims whose marriages are in trouble, or by Muslims who would like to avoid trouble in their marriage. I counsel about 4 couples every week on the verge of divorce, and issued also many divorces, either by khula or by talaq. Many Muslim husbands and wives treat each other like adversaries rather than partners. The husband feels that he is the boss, and whatever he says goes. The wife feels that she must squeeze everything that she can get out of her husband. Some wives never show their husband what they are satisfied with anything he does or buys for them in order to trick them into doing and buying more. They make him feel like a failure if he does not give them the lifestyle that their friends and families enjoy. Some husbands speak very harshly to their wives, humiliate them, and even physically abuse them. Their wives have no choice or opinion in the family. Regardless of whether or not Islam has made the husband the head of the household, Muslims are not supposed to be dictators and tyrants. We are taught to treat our wives well. The Prophet, on whom be peace, was reported to have said, the most perfect woman, Muslim in the matter of faith is one who has excellent behavior, and the best among you are those who behave best to your wife. I suggest that you follow the principle of shura and make decisions as the family. There'll be much more harmony in the family when decisions are not imposed on anyone, and everyone feels that they must have some part in making them. And there are, of course, ethics of disagreement in Islam. First of all, never be emotionally, mentally, or physically abusive to your spouse. The Prophet, on whom be peace, never mistreated his wives. He's reported to have said, how could they beat their women in daytime as slaves and then sleep with them in the night? 2, be very careful what you say when you are upset. Sometimes you will say things that you would never say when you are angry. If you are angry, wait until you calm down before continuing the conversation. The Prophet gives us wonderful remedy when we are angry. And as a reference here, when someone is angry, most of the scholars will say that is not accepted if he's angry and he's issuing a talaq to his wife. Show affection to your mate, be kind, be gentle, and loving. Show interest in your mate's life. Too often we live in the same house, but know nothing about each other's life. It would be great if the husband and wife could work together for the same cause or in the same project. And there are many projects in this community that needs to be addressed, and many volunteer opportunities for all of us to be involved in this effort. Show appreciation. Show appreciation for what your spouse does for the family. Never make your husband feel that he is not doing good enough for the family, or that you are not satisfied with his work or his efforts, unless, of course, he is truly lazy and not even trying to provide to his family. The Prophet, on whom peace, said, on the day of judgment, God will not look upon the woman who has been ungrateful to her husband. Show your wife that you appreciate her. If she takes her care of the house and the children, don't take it for granted. It is hard work, and no one wants to feel unappreciated. And sometimes we find that husbands come home and they're frustrated after a day's work, and they get annoyed with their wife because she did not probably cook a meal or prepare the dinner. We must understand that we don't know what condition your wife is when you leave her in the morning. She might be tired, she might be sick, she might be unable to do some work. So we must appreciate these feelings of her. Also, sometimes some husbands don't show no appreciation for the wife. I'm not endorsing any kind of birthday celebration here, but show recognition for your wife as you got by maybe a box of candy or taking out to dinner or sending her some flowers. Show appreciation for her. She doesn't have to cook every day for you. Work together in the house. The Prophet known have helped his wife in the house. And the Prophet, on whom peace, was not above doing housework. Modern Muslim husbands feel that they are not supposed to do this kind of job. And it is very reciprocal that we as husbands should always try to wash the dishes in the home, help your wife in the kitchen as much as you can. Communication, communication, communication. This is the big word in counseling, and it's also one of the #1 reasons that most psychologists would say is a cause for divorce, because people don't consult each other, they don't talk to each other. And it should be husbands and wives need to talk to each other. It is better to deal with problems early and honestly than to let them pile up until explosion occurs. And this is the #1 reason for divorce. Now, don't bring up past problems once they have been solved, and don't remind each other of previous behavior. And sometimes this is so prevalent, sometimes the husband or the wife might bring up some fault of the husband or the wife and talk about it all day. Live simple. Don't be jealous of those who seem to be living a more luxurious life than your family. The risk, of course, is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order to develop the quality of contentment, look at those people who have less than you, not those who have more. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the many blessings in your life. Give your spouse time alone. If your mate doesn't want to be able with you all the time, it doesn't mean that he or she doesn't love you. People need to be alone for various reasons. Sometimes they want to read, to think about their problems, or just to relax. Don't make them feel that they are committing a sin. Now, admit your mistakes. When you make a mistake, admit it. Sometimes it is very hard for some of us to do that. When your mate makes a mistake, excuse him or her easily. If possible, never go to sleep angry with each other. Physical relationship is important. Be available for your mate and don't let your relationship be characterized by selfishness. The Prophet, on whom peace was reported to have said, it is not appropriate that you fall upon your wife like a beast, but you must send a message of love beforehand. Have meals together. This is something I find that is very prevalent in our community. Try to eat together as a family when possible. Show the cook and the dishwasher, and whether it is the husband or wife, appreciation for his or her effort. The Prophet, on whom peace, did not complain about food that was put before him. Eat together, and a family that eats together stays together. Be mindful of your discussion topics. Never discuss with others things about your marriage that your spouse would like you to discuss, unless there is an Islamic reason to do so. Some husbands and wives, unfortunately, believe it or not, complain to others about their mate's physical appearance. This is a recipe for disaster. Information about your intimate relationship to be kept between you and your spouse. Many of us treat our wives in ways that we would never treat others. With others, we try to be polite, kind, and patient. With our spouses, we often do not show these courtesies. Of course, we are usually with our spouses at our worst time, when we are tired and frustrated after a hard day. After a bad day at home or office, some husbands usually come home angry and on edge. The wife has probably also had a hard day with the children and the housework. Wives and husbands should discuss their potential time bomb, so that if they are short-tempered with each other during this time, they will understand the reasons rather than automatically thinking that their spouse no longer loves them. Now, good marriages in a nutshell requires patience, kindness, humility, sacrifice, community, love, understanding, forgiveness, and hard work. These are all good ingredients for a good marriage. Following these principles should always help to improve any marriage. The essence of them all can be summed up in one sentence. Always treat your spouse the way you would like to be treated. If you follow this rule, your marriage will have a much greater chance for success. If you discard this rule, failure is just around the corner. And sometimes we find there are much more serious issues in our community when it comes to domestic violence. And we find physical abuse is one of the areas in which a woman is being suppressed in this society. And we find also that women, especially women who are coming from different countries, they find that they are at a disadvantage. They have no choice. They are at the mercy of their husband because, first of all, their wife does not speak the English language. She doesn't know how to communicate. She doesn't know the system. She can't get a job. She doesn't have any status, immigration status. Sometimes she have no account, she have no money, and she always being isolated in a corner, in a house. And this is like slavery. So we must understand that these are some of the conditions that I find that women are being subjected to in this society, that they're being subjected to the fancies and the whims of their husband. And the husband basically does not care. He does want her wife to be there for him at all times. She have no freedom. She's been suppressed. And this is more like a slavery. So we find that domestic violence in the Muslim community is not something new. A lot of women suffer silently. They don't mention it at all. They just sit there and they suffer silently and they wait for something. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help them in the effort if they sincerely try to do their best. So my dear brothers and sisters, this domestic violence in the Washington area in which I live, I must say that yes, it's been a tragedy for many of us here to see that women are being abused emotionally, physically, financially, culturally, economically at the whims and fancies of their husband. And of course, women have all the resources. They can either seek, I normally tell them the most important thing when a woman comes to me for advice, I normally look for the safety of the woman. And we have shelters here that offers protection for women. In our community here, we have a shelter exclusively for Muslim women in the Baltimore area. And also we have to make sure that the woman is safe. And then afterward, my strategy is that perhaps I will find out from the woman what's her situation, and I will talk to her about her condition after having make sure that she is safe. And then afterwards, I will talk to the husband, and if possible, see if there's any area for reconciliation so that they can get together. I don't like to issue divorces in this society, although it's slight, but it's allowed. But nevertheless, sometimes you women have no choice because of the behavior of the husband, and they are being left unattended. So these are some of the areas in which I find that women in this society and men especially are the perpetrators, and women are the victims. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us all to improve our marriages and keep our families together with love and tolerance and good relationship towards peace and understanding. And at no time allow anyone who faces of domestic violence appear or enter in our lives. So I know I may not have covered everything on domestic violence, but alhamdulillah, through my many years of domestic violence in this society here, I'd be glad to clarify any misconception anybody may have or any other inquiries or questions they may have. I have been involved in domestic violence here for many years, alhamdulillah. I am self-praise no recommendation, but I've got 4 national awards from various national domestic violence agencies here in the Washington, D.C. area as regards domestic violence. And as Riyadh mentioned, my article was published in the Faith Trust Institute, the largest clearinghouse in North America for domestic violence. They're based in Seattle, Washington. And I took part in the video presentation, and the Journal of Religion and Science carried my article on domestic violence in the Muslim community, a response to domestic violence in the Muslim community. So these are some of the areas in which I can speak with some degree of experience and knowledge. Thank you very much. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us all. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم. Well, I can give a good example just today. As a matter of fact, I was just off the phone with a sister. She's been married for 19 years. I fortunately have conducted a nikah 90 years ago, and she's having very difficult time to her husband in terms of domestic violence. And I counseled him about 5 years ago about avoiding this domestic violence, him especially towards her. But she bear it out, she's into the marriage after 19 years, and she was basically tonight crying over the phone. She said, I can't bear this any longer. And he's overdoing it, and he's gone beyond the normal control and behavior of his. So my advice for her, when after I talk to him also because I really don't issue divorce unless I can talk to the husband. And the husband did admit, yes, he did make a lot of mistakes and he's apologizing. He won't do it again. But when I get back to her tonight, she said, no, he said that before. I'm not going to go any further. I want to have a divorce. So, under those conditions, each situation is differently. Sometimes people will come to the masjid and then we counsel them and see perhaps we can save the marriage. But most of the time, no, they don't want to go back to that. Although 19 years is a long time to get married to each other. And then to seek a divorce at this time at the end of the tunnel is not a good indication at all. So we have to accept the fact, that it is allowed in Islam. And many women, as I said, she was suffering silently. Her father is only, I think this week, her father and her parents know what all the abuse that they've been shared, that they've been meted out to her. So as a result, they're coming Friday to see me to issue the final divorce. Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, we all try to follow the lifestyle of the Prophet. He was very helpful in his household. He used to do some chores just like any husband, and he set an example for all of us. So we must endeavor our own self to see how best we can be able to help our wives and our families to stay together, and by helping out in the kitchen or helping out doing other household chores is also a good area in which perhaps we can improve our relationship with each other, getting each other. I must say to myself, I can't tell you the last time my wife washed dishes. I've been doing it as far as I can remember. So I don't allow her to wash the dishes at all. That's been going on for years. I took care of that all the time. I have to set the example,
That's right. Lead by example.
Yeah, and I comment on that, but there's another verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says on the translation, men are the protectors and maintainers of women, because Allah has given the one more strength than the other, and because they support them from their means. Therefore, the righteous women are those that are obedient to their husband and guard in their husband's absence what Allah would have them guarded. When it comes to there's the hadith also, the Prophet on whom peace advised us that we should reprimand them. We first of all reprimand them and scold them basically, in other words, and separate yourself from them for a brief period of time. And if the last result, then you should admonish them by flogging them. Well, when I say the word flogging, I mean most of the scholars will say well equivalent to the strength of a toothpick or a toothbrush or a miswak. The strength of a miswak. That to what extent that you should flog them. So it's not really fully endorsed. I have never heard from any evidence anyone the brothers taking a whip and beating their wives like that. They might mentally abuse them or physically torture them, but when it comes to hitting them with serious disasters, is something that I've yet to be seen.
Okay.
But yeah, the hadith does give you permission to flog your wife, but only on a certain condition. After you pass certain conditions first, admonish them, separate yourself from them for maybe 1 day or two, and then you basically go back to them afterwards and work things out. And then if that prevail, well, then you just basically use the strength of a toothbrush or a miswak, and you hit them. We must also remember that Islam gives a woman the right to many issues that we are facing with the right, not only the right to vote, but the right for property, the right for inheritance, the right for own our own assets, the right for divorce. All these are rights a woman entitled to in Islam. So she has that right also too. Well, there's an organization called Peaceful Family Project here in Virginia. It's a very large, one of the largest clearinghouses for domestic violence. And every year they bring together imams for a 1-week residential training course on domestic violence and conflict resolution. And we just had one a couple of months ago. They're going to have another one early in March. But it's a very good incentive for imams, especially because there's no other resource that we can avail ourselves to benefit this kind of new dilemma that has appeared in our Muslim community. Domestic violence was not heard of now 30, 40 years ago, but now it's come to the surface, and even at the state level, they are getting recipients of who are victims of domestic violence, and they don't know how to deal with it, because sometimes the women who come to to the shelters, which we don't encourage the Muslim to go to their shelter because it's a different whole ball game altogether. But they don't deal with this cultural sensitivity, you know, how to deal with Muslims who come to the agency and to talk about domestic violence because they might be suffering culturally from some aspect of their behavior or something like that. But yeah, we need more organizations to come forward and offer courses. And there are some institutions like Faith Trust Institute, like Harvard Seminary, and the other Medina Institute. All these, some of them are now introducing this topic of domestic violence in their curriculum, which is a very good sign.
Okay, yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, there's a study recently came out that aligning domestic violence with mental health and mental health behavior, and this is something I think is that you should be going to depth into because obviously it is a mental issue. It's a mental issue. The attitude of the person who sometimes is not stable mentally, and then he acts in an irrational manner, in a manner that is not behaving of a good Muslim. So this is a mental issue also too. Yeah, sure. His sanity is not there, you know, and that's unfortunate. But there's a correlation between mental health and domestic violence.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yes, it's the national average for the national average for divorce in America is about 57%. The average for domestic violence in the community here is about 6 or 7%. The average for Muslims in the community facing domestic violence is almost up to 50%. So it's increasing dramatically.
Is there a reason for that?
I keep a record of all the domestic violence that I'm only a one man, you know, I do counseling for my masjid and I do counseling for one of the largest masjid in the Washington DC area. And they have aligned themselves with the government and they basically ask for report on domestic violence. And every month I submit a report. What I do personally in the Muslim community, and I normally get about 15 couples a month, and that's a very high percentage. About 15 couples a month I counsel every month for domestic violence, and this is alarming. So it is, yes, it is. It doesn't reach that that digit as shared by other non-Muslim community, Christian community, for instance. But yes, it is getting there. But you have to make efforts to control it. And by speaking out, as the sister said, you know, many imams are reluctant to speak about domestic violence, which is unfortunate. You know, they don't speak about it in the khutbahs. It's a taboo subject for them. Well, we have, I mean, we as Muslims, we believe in the qadr of Allah, you know what I mean? Whatever designed for us is going to happen. But yet at the same time, the prophets on whom he said, tell your camel, but have faith, you know, have faith. You must have to have faith. We know that if you put your hands in fire, we're going to get burned. Obviously, Allah knows, subhanahu wa ta'ala, know exactly what's going to happen, but we can avoid some of these things by accident. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a reprieve because he knows exactly what's going to happen there in our lives. Everything is, and sometimes people resort to say, well, I'm not going to do nothing. It's already been this time for me. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. He can, you know, he's the only one who can change our behavior and our habits. So there are options, of course, that we can be able to control our own behavior. No one controls our behavior but ourselves. And we are responsible for our behavior.
Okay.
Well, there has been a study of domestic violence in the Muslim community as regards those affected by domestic violence, and unfortunately, the number one area which is very high is people of Asian descent, people from Pakistan, India, or Bangladesh, followed by Afro Americans, who is also they're subject to domestic violence. Now, we at our mosque we have quite a few attendees who come to our mosque from Afghanistan because most of the government settle them in this area here. So we have classes for them on Fridays, and we have other areas in which we can help. We help them out since they arrived in this country, but no one has yet reported any domestic violence in the Afghan community so far. Hope not.
Okay.
Well, first of all, let me just point out what you mentioned is definitely wrong, because there's no evidence in the Quran or the Hadith saying that you can say talaq, 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 and give a woman instant divorce. That does not count. And most scholars also say if you're going to give talaq and you're angry, that does not also count. You cannot give talaq to a woman when she's pregnant. That does not count. So there are conditions in which we give talaq. But if you want your sound mind and understand what you're saying, and you have to give the talaq over a 3-month period, and that is our iddat period. But you give one talaq 1 month, another month, and the final month. And during that's the option for you to rethink what you say or if you want to reconcile with your wife. So you have that period is 3 months. So you have the prerogative of retracting your statement and getting back to your wife. So, but instant talaq is not acceptable at all in any part of the Muslim world. Talaq, talaq, talaq. That's not a wording that most Muslims share. Yeah, that's going for divorce. Yes, the lack of intimacy, and well, there again, you have to figure out why is it. Maybe he's dysfunctional, or maybe he might have some sexual issues, and or might be incompetent in some way. So that also could be a ground of divorce. But maybe he should, if that's the reason why, he's withdrawing himself from his wife, maybe he has a reason, and he should see medical advice and get an alternative to his behavior, sexual behavior. When someone gets married, initially it is based on goodwill and understanding and love and trust and determination to stand together in ease or hardship, in joy or sadness, in health or sickness, in joy, and in every aspect of your behavior. But as time goes by in your marriage, things doesn't always work out that way. And there's a turn in your relationship as a result of distrust or animosity or jealousy or hatred or just definitely envy. All these factors culminate in having a bad relationship with your husband. The objective of any counselor is to bring about a peaceful resolution to whatever you may face. That's been my objective, to bring about a peaceful resolution, whether it's under some strict rules or perhaps partial rules, but that's your objective. If that does not work, well then yes, you have to resort back to the family, see what the family thinks about it, and talk to your close ones who are very close to you. Sometimes women are subject to their father's parents, especially in some cultures, women live with their mother-in-laws or their father-in-laws, and sometimes they have a big say in which the husband treats his wife, and unfortunately this happens all the time in some societies. But yes, if you can't work things out, well then yes, a woman has the right to just separate herself from her husband, and after talking to the husband she doesn't have to have approval from the family. She just have to make sure that what she's doing is right, and she comply with the Sharia, and she fulfill all the requirements, and now she's asking for a divorce.
That being said, I want to thank again everybody for participating in tonight's class, and inshallah, we'll see everybody here next week, next Wednesday at 9 o'clock. So assalamu alaikum, everybody.